In a time when Israel had no king and everyone did what was right in their own eyes, a single man was chosen, not for his wisdom, not for his stature, but for the supernatural strength of God that flowed through him. He could tear a lion apart with his bare hands. He could lift the gates of a city upon his shoulders. He could strike down an army with nothing but the jawbone of a donkey. But for all his might, he could not conquer the weakness within his own heart. This is the story of Samson, the man blessed with divine power and cursed by his own desire.
The story begins in a dark chapter of Israel's history. The people of God had once again turned away from Him. They had chased after idols, broken His commandments, and forgotten the covenant that once made them a great nation. And because of their disobedience, the Lord allowed them to fall under the oppression of the Philistines, a ruthless and powerful enemy who ruled over them for 40 years. But God, in His mercy, had not forgotten His people. Even in their rebellion, His plan of deliverance was already unfolding. In a small town called Zorah lived a man named Manoah and his wife, a couple faithful to God, yet unable to have children. One day, as the sun dipped low over the hills, the angel of the Lord appeared to Manoah's wife. His presence shone with divine light, and his voice carried the authority of heaven. He said, "Behold, you shall conceive and bear a son, but he shall be a Nazirite unto God from birth. No razor shall touch his head, no wine shall he drink, for he is set apart to begin delivering Israel from the hand of the Philistines." The woman fell to her knees in awe. God had chosen her barren womb to bring forth a deliverer. She ran to her husband and told him everything she had seen. Manoah prayed, asking the Lord to send the messenger again to teach them how to raise this child. And when the angel returned, he repeated the command. The boy must be holy, set apart from birth. His strength will come not from flesh, but from the Spirit of the Lord. Soon the promise was fulfilled. A son was born. They named him Samson, meaning sunlight, a symbol of hope in Israel's darkness.
From his youth, Samson was different. The Spirit of the Lord stirred within him, and divine power began to manifest. His body grew strong, his heart bold, and his spirit fierce. But Samson was also impulsive, driven by emotion and desire more than by wisdom. One day, he went down to Timnah, a Philistine city, and there he saw a woman, beautiful and captivating. Though she was from the very people who oppressed Israel, Samson's heart burned with desire. He returned to his parents and said, "I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Get her for me as my wife." His parents were shocked. "Is there no woman among your own people? Must you go to the uncircumcised Philistines?" But Samson insisted, "She is the one who pleases me." Though his choice seemed foolish, God was at work through it, using even Samson's flaws to create conflict with Israel's enemies.
As Samson journeyed to Timnah again, a young lion suddenly leapt at him from the vineyards. But before he could even think, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him with power, and Samson tore the lion apart with his bare hands as easily as one might tear cloth. He told no one what he had done. Days later, as he passed by the same road, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. Inside it, bees had made a hive, and honey dripped from the bones. Samson scooped some in his hands, ate it, and gave some to his parents, but told them nothing of where it came from. Out of that strange event, Samson created a riddle that would lead to betrayal anger and bloodshed. At his wedding feast in Timnah, Samson entertained 30 Philistine companions. He said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you can solve it within 7 days, I'll give you 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. But if you cannot, you must give them to me." They agreed, and he said, "Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet." For 3 days they could not solve the riddle. On the 4th day they went to Samson's bride and threatened her, "Entice your husband to tell us the answer, or we will burn you and your father's house with fire." Fearful, she wept before Samson day after day. "You hate me, you don't love me. You've given my people a riddle, but not told me the answer." At last, worn down by her tears, Samson revealed it. She quickly told her people, and before the feast ended, the Philistines came to him with the answer. "What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion?" Samson's eyes burned with fury. "If you had not plowed with my heifer," he said, "you would not have solved my riddle." In his anger, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him again. He went down to Ashkelon, struck down 30 Philistines, and gave their garments to those who had cheated him. Then, enraged, he left the feast and returned home. When he returned later to reconcile, he discovered that his wife had been given to another man. Humiliated and furious, Samson vowed revenge. In a fit of divine wrath and human rage, Samson caught 300 foxes. He tied their tails together in pairs and fastened a torch between each pair. Then he lit the torches and released them into the Philistine fields, setting ablaze their grain, vineyards, and olive groves. The flames consumed everything. Smoke filled the skies over Philistia. When the Philistines learned that Samson had done this because his wife had been given away, they retaliated by burning her and her father alive. Samson struck back again, saying, "Since you have done this, I will not stop until I have taken vengeance on you." He slaughtered many of them and fled to a cave in the rock of Etam. Soon the Philistines came to Judah, demanding, "Hand over Samson, or we will destroy you." 3,000 men of Judah went to the cave and said, "Do you not know the Philistines rule over us? What have you done to us?" Samson replied, "I only did to them what they did to me." They said, "We have come to bind you and hand you over." He agreed on one condition: "Swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves." They bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him to the Philistines' camp. But as the enemy shouted in triumph, the Spirit of the Lord came upon Samson with power once again. The ropes that bound his arms became like burnt flax; they melted away. Seeing the jawbone of a donkey on the ground, Samson seized it and charged. 1 against 1,000, he fought like a whirlwind. The jawbone flashed through the air, striking down Philistine after Philistine until none were left standing. When the battle was done, Samson stood breathless among the slain and cried out, "With the jawbone of a donkey I have made donkeys of them. With the jawbone of a donkey I have slain 1,000 men." Then, exhausted and near death from thirst, he called upon the Lord. "You have given this great victory by your hand. Shall I now die of thirst?" God split open a hollow place, and water flowed out. Samson drank, and his strength returned. That day,
Israel saw that God's hand was truly with Samson.
But even as Samson rose in fame, the same flaw that once seemed small began to grow, a weakness not of the body, but of the heart. He was strong enough to break iron gates, yet not strong enough to guard his own desires. He judged Israel for 20 years, but his heart was still drawn to forbidden love. And so the enemy waited, patiently. The Philistine lords knew they could not defeat him with swords or spears. They had tried. But perhaps, they thought, there was another way, a way through temptation. In the valley of Sorek lived a woman named Delilah, beautiful, enchanting, and the Philistines came to her with a proposition. "Entice him," they said, "and find out where his great strength lies and how we may overpower him. Each of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver." The price of betrayal was set. When Delilah met Samson, her beauty disarmed him. Her voice was soft, her eyes gentle, but behind them hid the schemes of men who feared the God he served. "Tell me," she said one evening as they rested together, "what is the secret of your great strength? How could you be bound and subdued?" He smiled, teasing her with riddles as he had once had at his wedding feast. "If they tie me with 7 fresh bowstrings that have not been dried," he said, "then I shall become weak and be like any other man." That night, while he slept, Delilah did as she was told. She bound him with bowstrings, and Philistine men hid in the next room. "Samson," she cried, "the Philistines are upon you." He awoke and snapped the bowstrings like burned thread. Delilah's heart burned with humiliation. He had mocked her. Again she asked, and again he lied. "If they bind me with new ropes that have never been used." Again she tried. Again he broke free. A third time she pressed him. "Tell me, how can you say you love me when your heart is not with me?" Her words dripped with guilt and seduction day after day until Samson's spirit was worn down. And finally, he broke. He revealed the secret he had kept since birth. "No razor has ever touched my head, for I have been a Nazirite, set apart to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, my strength will leave me, and I shall become like any other man." Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart. That night, as Samson lay asleep upon her knees, she called for a man to shave the 7 locks of his hair. One by one, the locks fell to the floor, the outward sign of his vow now broken. Then she cried, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He awoke, thinking he would shake himself free as before. But this time something was missing. The Spirit of the Lord had departed from him. They seized him. They gouged out his eyes. They bound him with bronze shackles and took him to Gaza, where he was forced to grind grain in the prison. The once mighty judge of Israel, now blind and broken, reduced to a slave. But even in the darkness, grace was not gone. For as Samson toiled, his hair began to grow again. And though his sight was lost, a flicker of faith returned. He had learned the cost of pride, the weight of compromise. Now, in blindness, he began to see what he had missed when he was strong, that his strength was never his own.
Time passed. One day the Philistine lords gathered in their great temple to offer sacrifice to Dagon, their god of grain and harvest. "Bring out Samson," they shouted, "that he may entertain us." The blind man was led by a young servant into the vast hall. Thousands filled the temple, men and women upon the roof, watching, laughing, mocking. "Where are your mighty deeds now, Samson?" they taunted. "Where is your God?" But Samson heard none of it. His mind was elsewhere. His lips moved silently in prayer. He asked the boy who guided him, "Let me feel the pillars which support the temple, that I may lean upon them." He placed one hand on the right pillar, the other on the left. And then he prayed, "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me just once more, O God, that with one blow I may pay back the Philistines for my eyes." The crowd roared in laughter, not realizing the strength that was returning, not to his hair, but to his heart. Samson braced himself. He took a deep breath, and with a final cry, he said,
Samson's story is not just about strength, it's about surrender. He was chosen by God, empowered by the Spirit, and yet his downfall came through his inability to master himself. He could conquer armies, but not his own desires. He could tear apart lions, but not walk away from temptation. His greatest enemy was never the Philistines, it was pride. But even in failure, God's mercy shone. Samson's final act was not one of revenge alone, but redemption. God used him, broken as he was, to fulfill his promise, to deliver Israel. His story reminds us that no one is beyond God's reach. Even when we fall, even when we lose sight of our purpose, God can restore, redeem, and use us again. Because true strength is not in the hair on our heads or the power in our hands, it's in the heart that depends on God. So ask yourself, where do you draw your strength from? Is it from your own might or from the one who gives it?
If this story moved your heart, remember, God's strength is made perfect in our weakness. No matter how far you've fallen, His grace can rebuild what pride has destroyed. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this message with someone who needs to hear it today. And join us next time as we uncover another powerful story from the Bible, a story of faith, failure, and the unfailing mercy of God. Because every story in Scripture points us back to the same truth, that God's power is greater than our pride, and His plan always prevails.